Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound cast where we're going to be talking about the fights that just happened last night. UFC 319. That's when we had Khamzat Chimaev versus the defending middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis defending his middleweight title. So we had some pretty good fights. We had some prelim fights and main card fights that were all pretty exciting to watch. Rick, what did you think about those prelim fights?
Yeah, so I had a special interest in one. We had Alexander Hernandez fighting Chase Hooper. The interest there lies in that he previously fought Kurt Holloway. Alexander Hernandez did. And of course, Kurt Holloway is a Louisiana man out of Denham Springs. Coincidentally, he's my age. I grew up in Denham Springs, so I follow him. And he is big into jujitsu. My wife is into jujitsu, and they run in the same circles. Long story short, Alexander Hernandez fought Chase Hooper. And so I'm watching that and I'm looking at it, and they say Hernandez is a big underdog. Hooper's the big, young up and comer. He's tall, he's got range, he's good everywhere, and he's a big prospect. Also of note, he's 25 years old, going into his prime, on the way up. And all I saw was Alexander Hernandez kind of finding the range early. It was a one-round fight. It was a buzzer beater there at the end. He got a right hook that knocked him down, and ultimately won. They called it off 458. Pretty much a buzzer beater, like I said, right there. And he looked impressive. And so he looks to keep moving up. I don't expect to see him on prelims anymore. I do believe, as they say, it's a promotion. And if you win, you get promoted. You're going to move up. And so it'd be interesting to kind of follow him. He's been good. He's been around for a while. He's now 17-8. And he's got knockouts. He's got submissions. He's got it all. So just an interesting guy to watch. He's in his young 30s, but he's still, like I said, he's right there on the cusp of something interesting. That's really my big takeaway from the prelims. I didn't really have a whole lot of other thoughts. I was really more locked into the main card. And I'm kind of curious, what do you think about the main card? How did you think that was set up? How did that go? What your initial thoughts?
I was more interested in the main card than pretty much anything on the prelims, but there was actually one prelim fight I was watching. I watched most of them. I was watching most of them from my tablet while I was folding clothes on the bed. I had my tablet set up with my headphones, and I was trying to watch the fights while folding laundry. And I was actually going to talk real quick about the Edson Barboza fight. 'Cause Edson Barboza, once upon a time, was a killer. He was just a monster that no one wanted to fight. And he's had a rough streak lately. He was not looking very good in that fight. The official decision was 29-28, so he won one round. But I remember watching that thinking to myself that if he did win a round, it was close. They probably gave him a mercy round. I'm curious to know what you think about Edson Barboza. Do you think maybe it's about time to retire?
Yeah, Edson's been around a long time. Of course, I love watching the way he uses his legs as weapons. I mean, you talk about a great kicker from all angles. He's got the Muay Thai working. Edson Barboza is a legend in a lot of ways, in a lot of senses. I do think that he's probably reached that part of his career, though. It dates all the way back to 2011. And I feel like he's kind of at the part of his career now after coming off a few losses. You don't want to go out crippled, just go ahead.
Yeah.
You've made your money. You've made your mark. It's time to walk away. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at his list of fights here, starting with when he fought Khabib Nurmagomedov. You got loss, loss, win, loss, 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 win, win, loss, loss, win, win, loss, loss. There's more losses than wins there. He's at a point right now where he's barely a journeyman. I don't even know if he's ranked.
Do we know his age? I can look it up. Yeah, he's 39 years old. So, yeah, once you get north of 35, as we've come to know, it's really difficult, especially, middleweight down. The smaller you are, the more difficult. And I just, at lightweight, I don't really see him having a bright future. So I do believe it's time that you walk away while you still can.
Yeah. Well, us old guys in our 40s still competing like myself in jiu-jitsu, It's okay because I'm one of the big boys, so we're all old and heavy and strong, and we could keep going like that for a while.
I see you, Derek Lewis. I see
No,
you.
I might live in Louisiana, but I'm not Derek Lewis. I don't have his striking. I don't have his knockout power.
But you are a man in your 40s. So,
Yes, early
you do a
early
little
40s,
combat.
early
There you go.
40s. I'm mentally in my 20s though.
There you go.
Now going into this the main card, the main fights. So we started off with Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura, and Tim Elliott, I guess you could say, I mean, he won the fight. He won by finish, so he looked good. But like, it's one of those things. Like, I have a hard time really giving him too much praise in that fight because he spent a lot of, especially the first round, just kind of dancing around. He was kind of pitter pattering with Kai Asakura, and I was thinking to myself, if he keeps goofing off like this, it's going to get caught. And there's a few times where he was getting caught. I think he was messing with his defense. It almost seemed like he was a little too arrogant in that fight. Granted, he did win. He won by a submission in the second round, but leading up to that, I wasn't really too impressed. Like when another person showboats, like the person we're going to talk about in the next fight, we'll get to that in a minute. If they're showboating, but at least really controlling the fight, that's one thing. But I wasn't really seeing that here, and I felt like it was really taken away from his performance. Do you remember seeing that with Tim Elliott? He had a lot of dancing around and kind of almost goofing off. And not
I really thought Tim Elliott was. I thought Tim Elliott was going to be exhausted by the time the fight started. Watching him walk out into the octagon, moving around like he did, it was frantic, herky-jerky motions, like a nervous energy. I know that's how he is and that's his style, but I would think you would want to preserve every bit of energy when you're about to go into a fight with a trained assassin. And his unique style, as they said, it's him, but I was not a fan. I didn't like all the jumping around and bouncing around and wasn't into it. That said, he actually, in that fight, I thought he was getting outstruck early, of course.
Yeah.
But he has good head movement, even though it's unorthodox. But we've seen unorthodox fighters before, fare well. And not to jump the gun, but, Duplessis has been known for his style and, the way he approaches fights and the way he moves about. And so I thought of that when I was watching Elliott. Another person, though, that has an interesting, unique style, I find, is MVP. They talk about the points. He's a point fighter. He gets in, he gets out, he strikes you, he gets back. What did you think about Venom Page in that fight? How do you feel? Where does he go? What is your prospects for him at 38? What happens next?
So that's actually like a good. I think it's great that these two fights happen back to back because it's a really good one-to-one comparison. Because I still want to talk about Tim Elliott just a little bit longer.
Sure.
Comparing him to Michael Page. Yeah, you mentioned that Kai was outstriking him for a bit, and again, he did win by a pretty nice-looking mounted guillotine. But up to that point, he spent a lot of time dancing and less time giving output, and I think that hurt his performance. But hey, he did win, so I guess it's a moot point. Whereas when you look at Michael Page in his fight, and pretty much every fight he's ever been in, with a few exceptions where he's lost, he dances around, but he still continues the output. And it's really impressive. And he's one of the few people I followed outside the UFC for a long time. I do follow the other Bellator and PFL and stuff a little bit, like very lightly, but I'm not really that into it. And I couldn't tell you a lot of the big name people. Michael Page was one of the few people that I really followed from early in his career, kind of debuting in those smaller leagues. And I was wanting him to get into the UFC way, way, way earlier than he did. I was wanting to see him come in when he was still in his 20s, early 30s, because I thought it'd be really good to see him fight Anderson Silva, because Anderson Silva is still active at the time. That's how long Michael Page has been fighting. He's looked really good in the UFC. He did lose one match because he got out-grappled. But in this fight, I thought he did a really good job. Showboated a bit too much for my taste, but he still got the job done. Won 2 out of 3 rounds, and I actually agree with the decision. It was 29-28. Clearly, Jared Cannonier won the 3rd round. It's still a bit risky for Page or anybody to dance around and showboat in front of Cannonier because Cannonier has incredible knockout power, but he still made it work. So what's next for Michael Page? I mean, there's a lot of people at middleweight and welterweight because he fights at both. And actually, I've seen a lot of people already talk online on like Facebook and stuff that they would like to see him fight the winner of the fight that happened right after that, and that's Carlos Prates. I don't want to jump to that fight just yet. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I actually think that's a pretty good matchup because Michael Page did say at the end of his fight that he still has unfinished business at welterweight. Maybe he wants to get a rematch with Ian Gary, get that win back. But if he does want to go down to welterweight, there is Carlos Prates. There's a lot of other people that have good, similar stylistic matches that could make it for an exciting fight or maybe be a really good challenge for him. But I think Prates is a good start. And I don't know if you got any other people in mind that you think would be good for Page to fight next.
Well, so I guess I'll answer that with a question. So my question would be, do you think I'll jump to that in just a second, but do you think his style, the way he approaches fights, do you think he does that as a way to get in his opponent's heads? Because while it's showboaty, I do feel like he gets some value there. I think he gets the dog to bite, so to speak. He tries to throw things out there to bait you. And of course, he is quick, he's fast, he's talented, but he's trying to get in your head and he's trying to get you out of your comfort zone. He's trying to make you do things almost like Nate Diaz. He's going to just try and do different things to make you do, react in different ways. You've seen Nate Diaz, he's looking at somebody and he puts his back to him. He puts his hands on his knees. He's just trying to get you to look at different things so he can maybe find a hole in your game. That's something that you haven't trained for. And I feel Venom Page is kind of the same way. I feel like he's going to do different things to try and get in your head, fluster you, make you want to, punch at something that's not there because, of course, he's quick to move back. And he just presents a difficult challenge. And I do think that showboaty style is just one of his ways to be able to gain an advantage. I was curious as to your thoughts on that.
I do think that's part of it, the mental game, but I do think there's also a physical game behind it as well. Because, I mean, mental in that he's trying to frustrate you. You see someone dancing and showboating and making faces, and he's even doing like hand motions. Like when he dropped Cannonier twice, I think once in the first and once in the second, like he would kind of like a patting of the hands, like stay down or, some little hand motion. It's that stuff to kind of frustrate, get in your head. But also, I think part of the reason why he dances around so much is to make his movements unpredictable. So I think there's a mental game, but also a physical game. It's kind of killing two birds with one stone. Because again, like I said, I've been watching this guy like early in his career since I'm pretty sure he was in his 20s. I feel like I've been watching this kid forever. I say kid, he's a few years younger than me. But I've been watching him since he was so young, it felt like he was a kid, right? And he's always fought that way. And I was thinking to myself, he doesn't do it as much now, but whenever he was really early on, his dancing movement, he kind of rotated his arms almost like in a windmilling stance, like he's almost like in a dance club or something. And then he would very quickly throw one of his hands out and punch you. I'm rotating my arms here, sitting at the desk, like y'all could see me. But I think there is that physicality where if he stays moving and dancing, doing this kind of goofy movements, like it makes it where it's harder to predict. Like when you have someone, especially if you're a seasoned fighter going against a seasoned fighter, they're in a boxing stance and you see that shoulder twitch, the punch is coming. You got someone coming up that's basically dancing in front of you and just occasionally whips a hand at you, is so much harder to predict. So I think it is a part mental game and a part physical game. And for the most part, he's made it work. I mean, he's only lost 3 fights in his career.
3. That's it.
I'd have to look it up.
Yep, I'm looking at it. He's lost 3 fights in his entire career. And he looked, when I was watching him against Ian Machado Gary, who he's shown well for himself.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he was destroying him, just on the feet. But of course, we know how the fight ended. It ended with Gary on his back. Yeah. As great as Venom is with his striking, his ground game leaves a lot to be desired. It's why I don't believe he'll ever be a true contender at either 170 or 185. He is just not a true mixed martial artist. He just has a different style, but it doesn't translate to the ground. So I'm looking at it here, and he's ranked 15th right now for the welterweights, and he's not ranked for middleweights. But I have a fight in mind. I believe if he were to fight Israel Adesanya at middleweight, you look at it, who's Israel have to fight? He's fought Sean Strickland already. Of course, we know he's fought Duplessis. He's not in line for a title, so he's not going to get a Chimaev per se. He's already fought a Robert Whittaker. He's already fought a Jared Cannonier. I'm looking at the top 10. Paul Acosta, he's fought Marvin Vettori. An interesting stylistic matchup, which it's all about entertainment. You can't tell me Michael Venom Page versus Israel Adesanya wouldn't be must-see TV. And that's an opportunity for him to jump way up in the rankings and get a legitimate top 5 fight.
That actually would be a really good fight, especially because not to downplay Izzy's greatness, but he is, I guess, I don't want to say downward spiral. That sounds so harsh, but like, he's lost his 3 out of his last 4, 4 out of his last 5, something like that, and
right.
So he's lost 2 or 3 of his last 4 title fights. Yeah, because he lost to Drake, he's lost to Sean, and he went 1-1 with Alex Pereira. So he's like 3-4 in his last, 4 title fights, or 3 out of 4, I should say.
Right.
So he's at a point right now. It's like, okay, he already had his time in the sun. He's already had his time to shine. So now he's on that like post-title run part of his career, which is kind of winding down. And so even though Page is in his late 30s, he's still trying to rise up the rankings. What Izzy is probably on his way out, and I think this would be a good match where it's like the two kind of meeting in the middle, where the one's going up and the one's going out, and so they meet kind of almost a passing of the torch style fight. And stylistically, it would just be a very entertaining fight. And it kind of, if Izzy could find that old way that he had about him, where he was good at reading people and being a really good counter striker, because Izzy, prime Israel Adesanya, is one of the best counter strikers, period, any weight class. And if you're not going to out grapple Page like Gary did, or other people could do in the future, if you are going to stand and strike with them, you need to be a really good counter striker, because Page is going to put the pressure on you in very tricky, unorthodox ways, and you have to have those reflexes to see it and counter it. And I don't know about today's Izzy, but Izzy a few years ago, I think, would be a nightmare for him. So it would be a good test to see, is Page just a flash in the pan, or is he good enough to hang with, top 5 guys? Or how much does Izzy have left in the tank? That would be a fight that could answer several questions.
Agreed. Agreed. I really like the idea of that fight. There's a couple other interesting fights out there as well, but again, stylistically, that would be fun. And an MVP fight, I've seen a few of them where it didn't look like he really was trying to be too offensive. He has a lot of dancing. He'll make you miss. He will get in with those quick strikes, and a lot of times they're very powerful. But in his first couple fights in the UFC, I didn't really see that version of him. I know in Bellator he was that guy, but yesterday I was reminded of who he can be. And while he may showboat and that may turn some people off, very understandable, man, you cannot deny his talent. That guy is quick. And at 38 to be that fast, I think he still has a little juice left in that squeeze. And, the right couple of fights could promote him into a position to where he could be fighting for a championship. An Israel Adesanya fight that goes his way, all of a sudden he's looking at who? Like an Amavov or Barrejo or Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, one of these type of guys, and then you're in a title fight. So I believe he's a couple fights away from really being somewhere if he gets the right opponents next.
Right. And if he does want to go fight at welterweight instead of middleweight, because he did say he wants to do both, he did have more unfinished business at welterweight. That was his words.
True.
A lot of people did mention Carlos Prates, and coincidentally enough, he fought next on the card against Jeff Neal. Do we want to talk about that fight now?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into
it. So I went into that fight thinking Prates was going to win pretty soundly. I didn't think it was going to be as soundly as he did. That was one of the best knockouts of the whole night. It was a buzzer beater, 4 minutes, 59 seconds, spinning back elbow right on the side of the head. Jeff Neal goes down, and it's just done.
Yeah, Prates looked really good, and I've been watching Prates for a little while now. I really like his prospects as well. Jeff Neal is no joke. Jeff Neal has been in there against the best. He's held his own. He is, a household name. That guy's been doing it for a while. You do not want to get touched by Jeff Neal. And what we saw from Prates was a guy who's very skilled striker, very long, very crafty. And I mean, when you see a spinning elbow, if it hits just right, It doesn't even have to hit perfect. That's night. And what we
Yeah.
saw yesterday was a very interesting round of combat. You know, Neil came out. It looked like he might put something together, but Prates quickly established he is the better fighter. And I mean, what an exclamation point to that fight. That spinning elbow was the ninth we've ever seen, you know. Now, what's interesting is, and we're not jumping ahead, but the next fight had another spinning elbow, which was the 10th we'd
Right.
ever seen. But it's just so entertaining when you watch a stand-up fight. You knew this was going to be a banger. It was. It didn't last all that long, but that's okay, right? What do people like to see? They like to see the knockouts. What
And,
better way to knock somebody out than with that spinning elbow?
and to really show how impressive it is that he was able to get a spinning back elbow knockout on Jeff Neal of all people. Jeff Neal has a handful of losses. I mean, he's got plenty more wins than he does losses. But of his 7 losses, this is only his second KO loss ever. The last person that got a KO win was actually just a TKO, and that was against Kevin Holland before they were even in the UFC.
Wow.
8 years ago, if I'm doing the
Wow.
math right. January 2017 is the last time anyone was able to get a KO type finish on Jeff Neal. This is that long ago. In his UFC run, no one has got a knockout on him. It's been decisions and one submission. Shafkat was able to submit him. Everybody else can only get a decision on Jeff Neal because that dude is made of iron and he's not easy to finish. Carlos Prates put him to sleep in 1 round. Exactly 1 round. And that
Wow.
is very impressive whenever you really look at how durable he has shown. He's gone against killers with incredible knockout power who've delivered a lot of damage, and he was still standing in the end of it. Pratis just drops him at 459. I was completely blown away at that knockout. Just
I thought that knockout was fantastic, but the question is, should he have been given a second round? Because was he saved by the bell? Or obviously he was not saved by the bell. But that bell went off, and I'm looking there saying, well, wait a minute. Is the fight actually over or not? Did you have that reaction?
No, I didn't have that reaction at all. Anytime I see them jump in for like a KO, TKO call off right at the buzzer, I'll immediately have that thought. Like, is he still in it? Did he just get dropped? But is there still fight in him? And whenever they looked, like when the ref jumped up or looked at Jeff Neal, and when the camera panned in on him, I was like, no, he's done. Like, you could see he wasn't getting into a defensive position because we had a similar situation when Alex Pereira fought Yuri Prohaska in their second fight, and it was either at the end of the first round or the second round. I think it was at the end of the first round. Pereira lands a nasty head kick, drops Yuri, and it was right at the buzzer. It wasn't like right. It was almost. It was like 4:55-ish or something like that. And he was like ready to finish him off. And then Yuri was kind of in a position like he was kind of getting ready to go into a guard position. And he's getting his hands up. And the buzzer rang. And so in that situation, they let it go on to the second round. You could see Yuri was still conscious and ready to fight where Jeff Neal wasn't. Like, he just kind of went down and was just like staring at the ceiling. Just like he wasn't doing anything. So I think it was the right call. I think it was a proper KO call.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think about that Pierre fight. I know the one you're talking about. And yeah, it was interesting enough. The first strike of the next round knocked out Yuri. And so, you know, had they let that fight go on, if they had actually put Jeff Neal back on the stool, I'm sure it would have ended the same. So it was probably the right call. You know,
Yeah.
You always want to err on the side of caution. It may not be as entertaining for some, but it's the right thing to do.
I think I need to correct myself. I think I said that at the end of the Yuri Pereira fight, he dropped with the head kick. It was actually he dropped him with the hook.
I was going to correct you, sir. It was a left hook, and then it was a head
And
kick.
then it was a head. See, the head kick was on my mind because that's what he finished him with in the next round.
Correct.
He dropped
Correct.
him with the hook, and there was the next round. He just opens with the head kick. But anyway,
He sure did.
And speaking of spinning back elbows,
Where shall we go next, sir?
Aaron Pico versus Lerone Murphy. Am I saying that right? Lerone?
Murphy, that's correct. Okay, so in this fight, I have to say what stood out to me. So this is an MMA pod, but I'll just be transparent with you guys. I haven't watched Aaron Pico fight before. Never have. Now, I've seen highlights. I watched hype videos. You know, I got to learn about the guy, but I never actually watched him fight live. And I'll say this. When I was watching that fight, the way he was ripping shots to the body, and I hate to, speak crazy, but it reminded me of Ilia Topuria. It really did. His striking was so on point, and it looked like he got everything into every punch. Started from the ground, came all the way up through the hips, and just boom. It looked really impressive. But he got caught. Mr. Murphy, 16-0. I feel like somehow has flown under the radar. Here's a guy who's in a co-main event. Yeah, we got a guy in a co-main event, and I don't know how many people know who Leroy Murphy is. I don't. To me, for whatever reason, he just hasn't gotten a lot of notoriety. Now, there's no denying him after that knockout. And Mr. Pico, of course, being the prospect that he was, to knock that man out in the fashion he did. And we talk about spinning elbows. Protest spinning elbow was nice.
Yeah.
But man, it had nothing. To me, it was nothing compared to that co-main.
Murphy's landed more flush. It was clear.
He centered his head. And Pico had to go to the hospital after that. It was brutal. And he was down for what, like 5 to 10 minutes. He didn't pop
he was down a while.
Yeah. So, but Mr. Murphy, he deserves a lot of credit. They're talking about him possibly fighting Volkanovski next. I don't know how you deny him. After that performance, and I thought that fight was kind of in the air a little bit, but after seeing, he needed that highlight moment. I heard like Cormier on the post fight say, you need that Heisman moment in college football. And it's true. When you win a Heisman trophy, you got to have like your big special moment. That kind of felt like Murphy's coming out party. I think everybody knows who Leroy Murphy is now. And so, what do you think? Do you think it's Volkanovski? Does he have to prove himself for some other individual? Is he already there? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because you have some guys who have a lot of momentum right now that are in that weight class, and I could start tossing names out, but that would take forever. They have because I have to list each name and say why, So it's maybe I think if nothing else, give him one other like top 5 guy or something like that, and he could be looking at a title fight next. I was kind of blown away. When I was watching that fight, I remember going into it, he was saying that he's undefeated. He only has one non-win on his record, and it's a draw in his actually his UFC debut. He had a draw, but he's never been beaten. He's 17-0-1 now, so he's going to the fight 16-0-1. And he was saying leading up to the fight that, he's going to win this fight and then wants to fight Volkanovski next for the title. And I remember Aaron Pico was actually giving him hell in that fight. And it was pretty competitive. There was some back and forth between both of them. They're both doing pretty well. And there was one point where Murphy was kind of against the cage and Pico was landing on him. And I was like, oh no, we about to see this dude lose 0. Is he about to take his first loss? And then he was able to spin out, get his back off the cage and then kind of got more back into not the center of the ring, but at least a little bit more away from the cage, like halfway between cage and center. And then that spinning, I just wasn't expecting it. I didn't see it coming because it was like right after a bit of a reset. And I was like, really? 2 spinning back elbow knockouts back to back?
What are the odds of that, man?
Crazy. Because as you said, that was our 9th and 10th spinning back elbow.
Ever.
And we see spinning back elbow strikes all the time. And some of them can do a lot of damage, but to like land flush enough to knock someone out, it's not what you see a whole lot. And both of them were incredible knockouts, and getting them back to back, I just can't get over that. I remember I was texting you like I was just dumbfounded at what we just saw. So
just a spectacular card. I mean,
it really
you go into the card thinking, okay, we have DDP and Chimaev. That alone's going to sell. That alone's, in my opinion, the biggest fight of the year on paper to date. It's a monster. And you look at the co-main, and for people who don't watch, organizations outside of the UFC, they have Aaron Pico, who, you may not know. And then you have another guy who, like I said, for some reason has flown under the radar, Mr. Murphy. So you look at that and you say, but of course, further down the card, you get more name notoriety, more stars. Everybody knows MVP. Cannoneers fought for a title against Adesanya. The card itself was great. But to have those finishes, to have 2 finishes that were basically at the buzzer, to have 2 backspinning elbows, it was just amazing. And then you get to this main event, and I know that a lot of people, they don't necessarily view it as maybe the way me and you do. I think me and you are more hardcore than most. I think me and you can really appreciate the different styles. And I don't necessarily need to jump ahead, but if you want to get into the main event, we can.
Well, I was
Yeah,
gonna say one more thing on Leroy Murphy. When I really
sure.
look at his last few fights, this little streak that he's on, when he starts facing like solid names that have a lot of notoriety behind him, his last few fights before fighting Aaron Pico was back-to-back wins. Edson Barboza, Danny Ige, Josh Emmett, all decision wins. When I look at it that way, even though he is undefeated, and I look at some of the guys that are like next in line, like Diego Lopez, probably looking at another shot soon. You got Jean Silva or Jean Silva, I've heard it pronounced both ways. Yair Rodriguez, even Brian Ortega. You got these guys that are like right, kind of filling up the top 5 spot. I think Leroy Murphy is just about there. I think he doesn't need a title shot just yet. Maybe some people disagree with me, and that's fine. I think give him one more fight against one of those names that I just listed. Have him fight one of those guys, any of them, and if he wins, did I miss any that are like top 5 in that division?
No, no, you
I
didn't.
pretty much listed all the names there.
I believe if he were to get like a Yair Rodriguez, I mean, of course, Diego Lopez, that I believe that would qualify. Mr. Evlov, he never fights, so I have no idea when we can even expect him to actually
Right.
compete. It's been a couple years, hasn't it? So, Aljamain's about to fight Ortega. That's going to happen next week.
Oh yeah,
so maybe that
moved up in weight class. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so maybe that timeline works out to where you have like an Aljamain and Ortega fight, and maybe he fights the winner. And believe me, if you beat the winner of that competition, you definitely deserve a title fight. If he hasn't done enough already,
Yeah, I say give him one more. Let him fight one of those top 5 guys, and if he wins it, title shot. That's my opinion. So
yeah, I don't really see any argument.
speaking of title fights,
Was there a title fight?
The title fight of all title fights.
What was that, a fight, or what was that?
I don't know if it's a fight. So I got a lot to say on this. So before we get into this fight, I just want to clarify a little bit. I mentioned it on our intro. If you didn't listen to our intro, I'll recap it now. I train jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying I'm not an expert or anything like that, right? I'm not an expert grappler. I'm just a blue belt. I'm an old, out-of-shape blue belt, so I'm by no means a grappler. But I am still a grappler. I have very little striking. So because of that, when I watch UFC, I find more appreciation in the grappling than most other people do. Some people want to see stand-up bang wars, and that's great. That's fine. I love stand-up bang wars too. I was a fan of boxing before I was a fan of MMA, so I get it. It's exciting. When you watch a martial arts movie as a kid, do you see a lot of people grappling? No, you watch ninjas and you watch kung fu and you watch karate. We grew up on Karate Kid, Ninja Turtles, and Bruce Lee, right? So I get it. But as someone who really got into grappling, I appreciate the art of grappling if it's done right, if it's done well. I don't mean guys that will like take you down and lay and pray and not do a whole lot. I mean active grappling, putting in work, trying to advance position, work for submissions, ground and pound, stuff like that. So the reason why I'm bringing all this up is not to toot my own horn about my grappling credentials, because they're really not that good. Like I said, I'm an old, out of shape blue belt. That's one above white belt for those of you that don't know jiu-jitsu belt rankings. I'm not saying that to brag on it. I'm just saying that like I have an eye for it and I appreciate it. And I see a lot of MMA fans complain whenever, especially a high level fight, is mostly grappling. And this is a fight that was very divisive, I guess is a good way to put it. You have some people that are praising Khamzat Chimaev for an absolute grappling clinic, just completely smothers and controls Dricus du Plessis the entire fight, and Dricus could hardly get any offense off that whole fight. So it's just a masterclass in grappling. Then other people are saying the opposite. It was just boring. He was just laying on him, lay and pray. Wasn't doing anything. It was a very divisive fight. So this is one that I know a lot of opinions are going to be split on this, and I think this would be a good topic. If we have any viewers that want to like chime in on anything, give their opinion on it, we would love to hear it. So
Absolutely.
I know there's going to be a lot of varying opinions on it. So Rick, what did you think?
It looked like I was wrestling my 8-year-old. It was insane. I mean, think about it. You're talking about DDP, a man who's beaten an Israel Adesanya, a Strickland. He had the third longest winning streak in the UFC. It's not like he just threw together a couple of fluky wins. This guy is a proven commodity. This is the champion of the world. Okay, think what you want about his goofy style, and he can't really stand there. He can't really do this. He can't really do that. Well, against Hamzat Chimaev, he couldn't do anything. And it's not because he's not a good fighter. The man's proven. Hamzat Chimaev is just that guy. Hamzat Chimaev dominated in a fashion that reminded me of Hamzat from 5 years ago when he was on Fight Island and won 2 fights in 10 days. This guy had multiple fights where he didn't even get punched. The Kevin Holland fight comes to mind. Gerald Meerschaert fight comes to mind. I mean, legit fighters, top 15, top 10 caliber guys he ran through. And then people started questioning his conditioning. There was the Gilbert Burns fight, which of course went the distance. People said that it looked like he slowed down. We had the Usman fight that went the distance. People say he slowed down. I never saw it that way. I believe his gas tank was always there. I rewatched the fights and he won the last rounds of those fights. So yeah, was he as good as he was in the first round in those fights? No, but who is? He wasn't as fresh, but he certainly wasn't gassed. And I think what we saw yesterday was a man for 5 rounds put it on a champion in a way that I've never seen any championship fight ever take place, ever. And he wasn't the reigning defending champion. He was the challenger. And you also saw DDP, who was a big underdog, which I thought was interesting. I was looking at it saying, well, where's the value? The value was on DDP. I heard a lot of pros picking him. Volkanovski picked him. Chael Sonnen came out and picked him. A bunch of guys actually came out and picked DDP. I never saw it, though, because I haven't seen Chimaev ever look like he struggled with anybody. There's been fights that have gone a little back and forth. The Gilbert Burns fight, to me, is the best fight and the best example of that. But even in that fight, you saw him stand there with his striking, and you obviously could see him take him to the ground and kind of do what he wants. And so when I watch DDP, I'm like, well, DDP is not really a wrestler. So this is going to the mat. The question is, can he get up? What we saw was no, he cannot get up. We saw a man who was put in a crucifix multiple rounds, taken down within 10 seconds multiple times, taken down within 30 seconds every single round. It was so bad, I scored it 50-41. I thought the first 4 rounds were 10-8 rounds, which, again, for a title fight, are you kidding me? And then the fifth round was, in my opinion, a 10-9 round. Interestingly enough, come to find out, Dana White said he had it 50-41. I don't know where the judges all came up with 50-44, but that's not the fight I saw. And the fact that 50-44 didn't seem like it was enough credit to Chimaev speaks volumes. So,
talking about their grappling credentials, when you talk about Khamzat Chimaev's grappling is so good, he completely out-wrestled Dricus du Plessis. To explain how insane that is to think about is to really look at what Dricus du Plessis brings to the table when it comes to his grappling. He does a lot of sloppy boxing, maybe some sloppy kickboxing, and even like some kind of weird style takedowns. But if you look at the effectiveness of his grappling, Dricus du Plessis is actually one of the best grapplers in the middleweight division. And a lot of people don't think about it that way because people have recency bias. They look at kind of the last few performances. Yeah, he got a lot of takedowns on Sean Strickland in their first fight, but he didn't do a lot with it. But if you actually look at his total career, his overall career, he has more submission wins than he has knockout wins. Did you know that?
I did not.
He has 11 submission wins to 9 knockout wins. He's finished.
Wow.
He only has 3 decision wins. So he has 20 finishes out of 23 wins. 11 of those are submissions. And I'm reading right here, and I'm not going to lie to you guys because I can't keep track of everything that every fighter has done. There's so many fighters. I can't keep track of all their credentials, so I have the information pulled up on the internet right here. His submission grappling career. Du Plessis represented his team CIT MMA at a Submission Kings Quintet event where he submitted all 5 members of the Gracie Barra team to win the match. So the Gracie Barra, so it's like the biggest Gracie school team that's out there, got their 5 best guys to go, or I don't know if it's a total of 5, but there's 2 teams going against each other, and Du Plessis ran through that entire team by himself.
I did
And
hear that was 5 individuals, 5 different rounds, and he ran through each and every one of them every single round.
yes, and he has more submission wins than his knockout wins, and he has plenty of knockout wins. I don't know what his official like rank is because I don't see it listed anywhere. If he's like a black belt in jiu-jitsu or is it just MMA where they throw grappling in, he just got that high. I don't know what his official ranking is in that regard, but it's clear that he is not your average grappler. He is a really good grappler. And if you have really good grappling, I'm saying this as a grappler myself, you learn defense before offense. Pretty much every grappler has going to have better defense and offense because you kind of have to, because that's just the way it builds up. If you don't have good defense, you can't get your offense off to begin with. So for a person that is that good at grappling to get taken down and have no defense against it, to get smothered for 25 minutes straight, not exactly 25 minutes straight. If you total it, it was like 22 something or something like that for the entire fight is
Yeah.
mind blowing. I don't think a lot of people realize exactly how impressive that is on Chimaev's part to be able to out wrestle someone that in that lopsided of a way against someone who's that credentialed in grappling. I actually had the stat. I sent it to you recently. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. It's something that I didn't know either. Let's see if I can find it. Just had it up. It was like his total control time, like before.
It was like, yeah, let's see.
Here it is. I got it right here. I got it pulled up. Duplessis had previously spent 4 minutes and 56 seconds on bottom position in his 5-year UFC career prior to the fight last night. Then he spent 4 minutes and 46 seconds
Wow.
in just the first round alone. So 10 seconds
Wow.
shy. The first round alone, Chimaev was able to put him on his back 10 seconds shy of everything else previously in his full UFC career. Not MMA career, UFC career. So
Domination.
That
From
is-
round one. From the opening bell.
that's
From the opening bell.
it was
So-
like less than 10 seconds he got that takedown. Double
Yeah.
leg.
Yep. What did he throw? 1 kick, maybe 2, and then boom, he was in.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how every round started. Within 30 seconds, he was on his back. And, it was to watch that man get ragdolled. Duplessis, a big tank of a man,
Yes.
get ragdolled like that. I mean, some people may say it's boring. Some people may say, oh, this guy is just holding him down. He's not doing anything. Well, he landed and threw over 500 strikes.
Yeah.
So while they may not all have been great, and there were some bunny punches where he's in the crucifix that, minimal damage, I get it. The point is he dominated.
Yeah.
So if you can appreciate greatness, you got to appreciate Khamzat Chimaev. That man is unbelievable. And, I found it really interesting. A lot of people were saying before the fight, if DDP were to win, where does he go in the pound-for-pound rankings? So I pulled up the pound-for-pound rankings, and I find this fascinating. This isn't updated, and I'm glad it's not. So we all know Ilya took over Islam's spot, number 1. Islam's 2, Merab's 3, Pantoja's 4. Now, I don't know how this happens, and this would be another thing to discuss. I don't know if they've gone to AI fully, because right now Pantoja and Duplessis are tied for 4th, right? So here's the question. Where's Khamzat Chimaev in the pound-for-pound rankings? 14th prior to this fight. So my question to all the viewers, who is beating Khamzat Chimaev? At what weight class? What do you say? I think he can go up to 205 and beat anybody and everybody. I believe 185, he could stay champion for a long time. I believe if he wanted to go back down to 170, where he was before, even if that meant fighting Islam, who I value as one of the all-time greatest fighters, I am not picking anybody, and I mean anybody, to beat Khamzat Chimaev.
I can only think of one guy that I think could really give him a hard time, and that's if he wanted to move up to light heavyweight, and I truly think he can. And if he fought your favorite fighter, Johnny Walker.
Oh, I love him. What a cartoon character. This guy's a clown. He's a great fighter, but he's a clown. Continue.
Dude's got a chin made of glass. we make jokes about Johnny Walker all the time because it's not that he's like really that bad. It's just that he acts like a complete goofball, and then when he gets knocked out, it's so like comical. He doesn't just go down. Like when Jeff Neal got hit with that spinning back elbow, he went down and was just like dazed and stopped moving. That is a normal reaction of someone getting knocked out. Where this dude flops around like a cartoon character. I'm just waiting for one day that someone knocks him out. That's why I keep saying I want to see Alex Pereira, like, because I think he probably has the most knockout power, like one punch knockout power in the light heavyweight division, right? Even though he's not champion anymore,
No doubt about it.
He's still the KO artist. I want to see Pereira. I know I'm getting off topic here. This is what we do on this show. I want to see Pereira fight Johnny Walker, because I think if we could ever see in real life someone get knocked down and actually have Tweety birds flying around their head, it would be that fight. We need to make it happen. I want to see
totally
some
agree.
Cartoon character level knockout. So, but
I mean, and this is a man who, when he did win, did the worm and injured himself doing the worm. So you have to laugh at Johnny Walker. If you're not laughing at Johnny Walker fights, you're not doing it right.
I'd still rather watch Johnny Walker fight than slap fighting, but that's another story.
I'd rather watch a lot of things, but continue.
Right. You're talking about the scoring. So, and I agree that I agree with you in that I disagree with the judges. So the judges had it 50-44, which means they gave him 110-8 round. Oddly enough, I want to mention this to the viewers, a little backstory on this podcast. So we are the Ground and Pound podcast. We were going to go by the 10-8 podcast. And the reason why is because Rick and I like to go back and forth. We'll talk about, like, if we're not watching the fights together, we're usually texting each other during the fights. Like, oh, I gave it to fighter A, I gave it to fighter B, 10-9 round. And I'm more likely to give out a 10-8 round out before Rick.
You get a car.
Right. So I'll watch one, and it might be one that Rick sees as like a dominant 10-9, like a very one-sided, but it's still a 10-9. Like he wasn't close to finishing them, and it wasn't like 4.5 minutes of domination. But there's still times where I'm like, I think he was pretty close as a couple points. I think that might be a 10-8. And I'll text him, this is 10-8 round. And he's like, that wasn't a 10-8. You and these damn 10-8s. And so we were actually going to make our podcast the 10-8 podcast. And one of the segments was going to be, was it a 10-8? It was going to be like the namesake of the show. We ended up not going 10-8 podcast because it turns out there's a boxing podcast out there called the 10-8 podcast. And we don't want to have any confusion with the names. Plus, he's been doing it for a few years, and I don't want to steal his thunder. But this would be where we would actually bring that stuff up. Was it a 10-8? So if it was 50-44 by the judges, which is what it was, all three judges 50-44. That means, doing the math, that means they gave him 110-8. All the other four were 10-9s. Now, watching with my buddies at the house, two of us had it 50-42, which means we had 3 10-8s. One of my other buddies in the house had it 50-41, same as you. So he had it 110-9. I'm assuming you gave the 10-9 round in the 5th round, right?
Has to be. That was the only time DDP showed any life. Right.
But, I mean, there's a few rounds where like Chimaev still completely ran the whole round, but I feel like Drickus got up a couple of times in a couple of the rounds, and so I was like, I could see that being a 10-9. So there's a couple that were borderline 10-8, 10-9. But even so, I had 3 10-8s. One of my buddies I was watching with had it 3 10-8s. Another one had 4 10-8s. So you had 4 10-8s. And the judges only had 1 10-8.
Yeah, I'm not really quite sure what they were looking at. I mean, when you're talking about domination, when you're talking about a guy being on his back 22.5 minutes in a 25-minute fight, and most of that really, I'm sorry, the exception being the 5th round, the 5th round, he actually showed a little life, but the first 4 rounds, I mean, right. My goodness, it's just out of those first 20 minutes, it had to be over 19 where he was on his back. Right. And so, again, while he may not have landed the most significant damage, and I guess that's the argument for not having more 10-8s, it's total domination. Just total domination, bell to bell. And, Chimaev, again, I'm looking at this. I want to go back to this real quick. I'd like to get predictions here. So anybody out there, Chimaev was 14th before that fight. Now, he fought a top 4 guy. Where does he go? Because, again, who's beating him? So, to me, if Duplessis was 4th, I mean, simple math here, right? He beat the number 4 guy. Do you put him there? He is the champ of his division. To me, he has to be in that top 5 range for sure, because Pantoja, Merab, Islam, Ilya clearly deserve their spot in the top 5. And to me, you look down here, number 6 is Alexander Volkanovski. Okay, Volkanovski, as great as he is, and he's an all-time great, Ilya showed there's levels, and I just believe Hamzat just showed there's levels as well. As far as middleweights go, the bar has been set. Good luck, gentlemen. There was a bunch of guys in attendance yesterday. You saw De Ritter. You saw Hernandez, Fluffy Hernandez, coming off his big win. I'm watching these guys, and Barajo is there, and it's just like, ooh, I got to deal with that. Now, De Ritter said after the fight he would much rather fight him because he would much rather fight Chimaev because the styles match up better than if he were to fight DDP. Good luck, man. I know you've just come up and you just fought Bo Nickel and you beat him and looked impressive doing so, and you've had a couple of good wins you've strung together, no doubt. I don't know anybody who would willingly want to go out and fight Hamzat Chimaev. I don't see how anybody's getting it done. But again, my 2 cents, it'll be interesting to see Tuesday when they update these rankings where he lands. But I do believe he's going to jump into the top 5 and deservedly so.
Right. And now I wonder who's next for Chimaev. Who fights him next?
So I'm a big believer. We can get into this just a little bit. I'm a big believer that before you move in weight classes, you really need to kind of wipe out your division. At least give me a few title defenses. You know, all this weight jumping is crazy. I'm going to go to this class. I'm going to jump up here, and I'm going to do that. He needs to establish himself more. I mean, granted, we've known him. He's been around a while now. But as a champion, he's not established. He hasn't defended his belt one time. So we need to see him get in there, defend his belt. He's talked about moving down to possibly fighting the JDM Islam winner. He's talked about going up to 205 to fight the Ankalaev Pereira winner. I think he needs to find his home at 185. He has bounced from 170. He struggled to make 170. We saw where he had an 8-pound weight miss. And so last second, they had to put him in there against Kevin Holland. It was supposed to be Nate Diaz. That got changed because he could not make the weight. And so let's just hang out at 185. I don't see Dana saying, hey, let's go down to 170 anytime soon, if ever. He probably doesn't want to have egg on his face because he's missed weight so bad. Dana's not the kind of guy who's going to want to throw out too many olive branches for you. So I see him staying at 185. Now, like you said, who does he fight? I got it pulled up here. So I think Imavov and Barajo, that's going to be the winner of that fight. I think has to be the guy. Imavov has been the number 1 contender for over a year. He's had that one by his name. He's done a lot. He embarrassed Israel Adesanya. The way he dominated that fight was very interesting to me. I don't see how he's not going to be given a shot if he wins again against another top 5 guy. But De Ritter and Hernandez are both hot. They're going to fight each other, I believe. I think that's going to be a matchup that gets made here pretty quick. They're both on the same fight timelines. So, you know, you could have like a little mini round robin situation potentially. But just looking at the list, I don't see anybody giving this man much trouble. I can't imagine anybody's going to be able to do anything with him. You could say a lucky shot, but the question is, who has the best takedown defense? You know, who can sprawl? Who can stay on their feet? And his wrestling is so elite, I don't see anybody standing in front of him before they get double leg takedown or even a single leg. He's just that good.
Yeah, honestly, looking at the top few names here, and I have the UFC site pulled up right now, and I have the rankings, and they haven't updated it. I don't know if that's the list you're looking at. They still have Duplessis the champ and kind of ranked at 3. But we know, of course, they just haven't updated that yet.
Correct.
When I look at the list, just looking at the top, I don't know, 6, 7. If you ask me who has the best takedown defense, I would honestly tell you it's probably a toss-up between Sean Strickland and DDP. And we saw what happened to DDP last night, you know? Ooh. And Sean Strickland has pretty good takedown defense, and if he does get taken down, he gets back up pretty quickly. But he's not getting taken down by people with the caliber that Chimaev has. Chimaev's grappling is so insanely good. So for those of you who don't really follow grappling outside of MMA, you might not know that Luke Rockhold is actually a very decorated grappler. He's competed a lot in just pure grappling competitions. He is renowned. He competed at CJI, if you know about that, the Craig Jones Invitational. He did lose in it, but that's like the best of the best only get invited to that. He is freakishly good at grappling in general. That's wrestling and jiu-jitsu. and he's also a good bit bigger than Chimaev in height and weight. All right, they had kind of like a grappling like sparring match on video, and Luke Rockhold is one of the best grapplers I know of in MMA history, and Chimaev ragdolled him bad. I was like, wait, is this real life? Like, it was so bad, like so one-sided, and I'm like, Luke Rockhold is one of the scariest grapplers there are, you know? Like, just being a well-rounded grappler outside of the Dagestani crew of people, you know?
Of
He's
course.
really, 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 really good, is what I'm getting at. Like, go to YouTube and just pull up like Luke Rockhold Jiu-Jitsu, Luke Rockhold Wrestling, and you'll see he's actually a very talented grappler, and Chimaev made him look like he didn't know what grappling was. So, as good as DDP and Sean Strickland, and maybe some of these other guys like Caio Baralo, who has a judo background and jiu-jitsu background, and Robert Whitaker had a really good takedown defense. You saw what happened to him. Like the other guys that I listed before that haven't fought him yet. So it's like, can they handle that train when it comes rolling at you, you know? Sean Strickland swears that he can handle it. He made a statement right after the fight happened, like minutes after it happened, saying that, in the gym, he was able to stop his wrestling. But it's Sean Strickland. He talks a lot, you know?
He's going to say a lot. Oh, yeah.
Say a lot. But he
You
was
already
saying
know.
that he's, it is a known fact that the two have trained together before. And he was saying that, Chimaev can't take him down or hold him down. He could handle his wrestling. And then Strickland, of course, has the good striking. And it could be an interesting fight, but if Dricus can take you down, granted, Sean was able to get up each time, but it's not Chimaev taking you down. And Chimaev's control is on a completely different level, so...
Chimaev's a different beast, and as much as we talk about how much he's a great grappler and wrestler, and he is. I'm looking at it here. The man, of course, we know is undefeated. He's 15-0. But this is what's interesting. He's got 6 wins by knockout, 6 wins by submission. So for everybody saying, okay, well, maybe I can do this or that on the ground, let's not forget. He one-punched Gerald Meerschaert. One punch. That's it. So he can stand there. He has the power in his hands. He has the ability to switch stances. He uses his legs as well as his arms. He's well-rounded striker, and I believe he's getting better. Just like they talk about his conditioning, and it's obviously improved a lot. He struggled with COVID. He was on a ventilator at one point, barely was able to stay alive, and he's come all the way back. And now we're dealing with a guy who's got a gas tank. The questions are answered. Does he need to do 25 more minutes against the champion? It's done. He's got the lungs. So the question's been answered there. He's good on the feet. He's great on the ground. He's just a problem. And again, I don't know where he goes. I'd like to see him stay put, but in the age where everybody's moving around, maybe he wins a couple times and says, I want to bounce around. Before the fight, he was asked, how do you feel about the belt? And he said he does it for the money. Yet in another interview before the fight, he talks about he wants to be the first triple champ. So let's not kid ourselves. He wants the belts, and let's face it. If you have the belt, you're getting the money. They go hand in hand.
Right.
So I could see him moving around, creating some mega fights. A fight versus Islam would be a mega fight, quote unquote. A fight versus a Pereira would be a mega fight. Pereira is my favorite fighter, but if he fought Chimaev, it would be first round submission all day, every day. There is no way he would get put on his back with the quickness. And I think he poses too many problems for too many people. I think he's going to be a long reigning champion unless he gives up his belt to go chase another one. That's something we've seen Dana do lately. You got to put your belt down if you want to go to another weight class. I don't believe that he's into the champ stuff anymore. But like Ilia Topuria is the perfect example. This man was the featherweight champ. He could easily be a triple champ right now. He could be the featherweight champ. He could be the lightweight champ. And he could also be the BMF. He beat Max Holloway. But the UFC isn't doing business that way anymore. So I don't think we'll see Chimaev walking around with 2 or 3 belts. I just don't think that's going to happen. But that said, I don't think there's anybody who slows him down.
Right. I know there's a few people at middleweight really want to get their hands on him, like John Strickland and Paulo Costa. And as much as I love Paulo Costa because I think he's hilarious, I think he just gets killed. And I used to think Sean Strickland would have beat Chimaev, but that's, I think, because I was watching Chimaev have a couple of his performances that were good, but maybe showed signs of weakness, like whenever he kind of faded in the last round against Usman, for example. And I think I
Right.
looked at that and then looked at Sean Strickland's gas tank, and I'm like, I could see Sean weathering the storm and then coming back and dominating late, but now it's like Chimaev has improved in that area, and I think he could go toe to toe with that gas tank. So I really think that we do have some people that are worthy competitors. You got Imavov and Kaio, looking at probably being close to next in line. Sean is still ranked number 2, and
Although he's lost 5 of his last 8. But anyway, continue.
Sean,
Yeah,
has he?
he has.
Yeah, interesting. But either way, he's ranked number 2, and he did win the title fairly recently. So he could if he gets like one decent win, it wouldn't surprise me if they let him get a shot. Even though he did lose twice against Dricus, it's just rotating
Well,
title syndrome, you know.
he sells tickets. 4th of July is coming around the corner, Maybe that's something we see on the White House lawn. You never know.
Yeah, we're gonna see. Yeah, that's what we want. We want to see the Russian beat like the most patriotic American guy on 4th of July in front of the White House. That's totally what we need, right? Because
Yeah, that wouldn't be ideal. But you know what? Not to go political, but Trump did help get Chimaev into the United States. He's got that kind of power. And
Right.
so, maybe he wouldn't mind seeing something like that to bring the
Maybe.
whole world together. You never
know.
know. You never
Yeah.
know.
Side note: we are not gonna ever get political on this show because we
are not.
we both can't stand politics. If we ever mention anything like "Well, Trump this, White House that," it's because how it affects UFC. Like, and when it's relevant,
Absolutely.
when it's relevant to like how it's going to affect the future and events and location stuff like that, then we'll mention stuff. But yeah, you're not going to hear us on here making political.
This is about fighting, and we're not doing political fights here. So.
Right. So, but yeah, and also, what's next for Dricus du Plessis?
See, that's interesting. Where does he go? Where does he fall? He's got this interesting dilemma because a lot of guys right beneath him are guys he's beaten. So,
Right.
Who does he fight now? There's different options out there. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. He doesn't deserve to really follow that far, even though he was dominated. He was the champ for a long time. And I don't really see him falling really outside of the top 2 or 3. I mean, if Strickland's ranked number 2, and we know I just looked, he's lost 4 of his last 8. So let me correct myself. The man's lost 4 of his last 8, and he's number 2. I don't really see how du Plessis falling past 2. So he's going to be fighting somebody relevant. Maybe somebody's moving a weight class that we don't foresee coming. I don't know. But the man doesn't deserve to just drop like a rock in those rankings.
Right.
I don't really know I don't know. It's going to be one of those situations where you got to kind of sit back and see how things unfold. I think he takes a little time off. I think he's going to want to work on his wrestling. So I don't think it's a big rush to throw DDP right back in there. Obviously, there's not going to be a rematch. There's no need to see that again. Nobody's clamoring for that. So I think he's going to just take a little time, get his game more well-rounded. He's got a lot of work to do. So I don't think he needs to jump right back in there without kind of honing in on his skills.
I think him versus Kaio would be really fun to watch.
Yeah. The fight to me that stands out the most is him versus Fluffy Hernandez, because you want to talk about an absolute brawl. You want to talk about 2 guys with heart, 2 guys that are going to stand there and it's not going to be a takedown fest, although Hernandez can do that. Fluffy Hernandez is on an 8-fight win streak, and if he were to get a fight versus DDP, that could be the catapult he needs to get into a title fight. I'm a big fan of his style. I just recently started watching him. I believe he'd be right there. That would be super fun. That would be a big-time fight. But again, I think he's going to take a little time, and we'll see where everything falls.
You know what? I just had a genius idea because people like to bounce around weight classes so much. Well, since Dricus just lost his title, he doesn't really need to be beholden to the middleweight division anymore. He could easily bounce up one weight class, maybe fight someone at light heavyweight. Quick question. You're around my age. Did you grow up watching Looney Tunes?
I sure did.
Isn't that not one of the best cartoon series of all time, if not the best?
Yeah, I believe it is the best.
The wacky fights that all the characters have against each other and just the goofy outcomes was some of the most entertaining TV I've ever had growing up. And I miss having that goofy brawling energy on TV. We need to bring that back. So I just had a brilliant idea. We need to get the two cartoon characters of the UFC to fight each other. Dricus du Plessis moves up to light heavyweight and fights Johnny Walker.
Oh my goodness, folks. You want to talk about Looney Tunes. That is Looney Tunes. That's two guys who are going to put on an absolute show. One guy's going to go out in spectacular fashion. I look at DDP as the Tasmanian devil. He just runs in there. I mean, we didn't really get to see him spin around because he was on his back, so it's kind of hard to do that. But that's one guy who typically is running around the ring doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it looks like a train wreck every time he's in there, typically, unless, again, he's on his back. And then Johnny Walker, as we've already discussed. That would be fun. I could see that being entertaining. I'd watch it.
Yeah. I sometimes think that Dricus could also look kind of like Bugs Bunny because he's like really arrogant, confident, wins fights you shouldn't win, and likes to kiss dudes. I'm not judging. I'm just saying I see the comparisons. That's all.
I'm with you. I'm with you, sir.
So, anyway, that's pretty much all I got, man. That's UFC 319. So,
yeah, I think we kind of touched on all the points. It's a work in progress, folks. So bear with us, but I do believe we're going to be able to bring you guys hopefully some analysis, a little bit of laughter, and again, we want the interaction. So once we start kind of folding that in, I do believe this thing will grow.
Yep. Well, we're at a little bit over an hour now, so I think we're about to wrap this up. So I'm just going to end by saying, this is my buddy Rick, a big MMA fan, and I am Vince, another big MMA fan, and we just want to sit here and have fun with you guys, whoever wants to listen and chime in and discuss all things combat sports except slap fighting.
Amen.
Power slap is an abomination and should not exist. I plan on every single episode on the Ground and Pound cast, I plan on making fun of slap fighting. That's just going to become a thing because of how much I hate it.
I thought you liked slap fighting.
No.
He does not. I do not. It's not a sport.
It's not a sport. It's not a sport. Name a ridiculous combat sport. I got a few. I've seen telephone booth boxing. I've seen car jitsu, when it's two people doing jitsu, like you're in a car, like seat belted up. Then you have to unbuckle real quick and have a grappling match in a car. And I mentioned
telebooth fighting.
Yeah, there's telephone booth boxing. You have pillow fighting. I've seen some of the most ridiculous forms of combat sport. I've seen extreme arm wrestling where like you're arm wrestling like on a podium, but then you start punching each other. All of those ridiculous forms of combat sports are just listed, if you want to call them combat sports, like televised combat, events, even if you don't want to add the word sport to it. All of those I respect more than slap fighting, power slap. It's garbage. So,
all right, y'all. Well, until next time, it's been fun.
All right, y'all have a good one.